Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to keep moving on through Instrumental Week, and today we are going to we're going to get a song randomly chosen from the top half of the poll. We're going to look at Dopapod. I think. The description here says Echo Sessions 15 Dopapod FABA. Okay, so Echo Sessions is the show. So Dopapod's the band and FABA is the song. I think that's right. Alright, so let's get into this one. Don't know what we're in for other than the fact it is instrumental. I don't even think Dopapod is on the spreadsheet. So this is just, I have no information about this. Let's roll out. I don't know why I did that. Brought to you by Subaru. I honestly cannot read today. Yeah, I'm really digging that guitar though. Nope, not the guitar. What's the other instrument here? That is a guitar, isn't it? Nope, piano. Yeah, this little playfulness is amazing. Yeah, that's groovy. Oh, and funky. Yeah. I don't care if this is 11 minutes of just this funky guitar. I mean, funky piano. I'm down. Yeah, start to open this up. That sounded familiar, but I can't quite place it. I feel like the synth player was alluding to something, but I just can't. Yeah, some nice classic rock and roll stuff. Yeah, nice little hi-hat run there. Someone please tell me this is improvised. Ooh, yeah. I really want this to go somewhere, and I don't think it's going to. Dang, all that energy, and it just... Oh, man. That's a little disappointing. Ooh, yeah, the syncopation in a drum part here is phenomenal. It's subtle but so effective. That drum work, ooh. Alright. It kind of felt like he was trying to bring in a key change there. We didn't, so that's... Alright, we're building up again. Alright, we've opened up a bit, volume-wise. We got, yeah, the drums are opening up. A lot more simple. The wider cymbals, not just hi-hat. Yeah, that was nice. The drummer was emphasizing 1, 3, and 4, and now he's hitting snares on every beat. Just slowly increasing that drive. Alright, we're bringing this section back, but not on keyboard this time. Yeah. Wait, the song has like, what, a minute tops left? No way. And they're gonna finish out on like a hard rock riff. Now this is awesome. So I mentioned yesterday about the Phrygian mode. This that's the sound I was talking about. And then just end on a stinger. Very interesting stuff, for sure. Not really. Uh, yeah. So if you're new to the channel, I'm going to take two approaches to this, and sometimes they will intermingle. More of an objective approach, looking at it analytically, and more of a subjective approach, how it works with my tastes. And yeah, because I'm very torn on this one. So to me, the song feels like a very long jam session. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. Um, Coming from a jazz background, I really love this. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I kind of hope that a lot of this stuff is improvised. I think that's really going to change the dynamics of how I personally feel about the song. It is. It feels like a long series of solo sections. We have very little moving, or yeah, very little bit moving underneath the lead line. Typically that's going to be your guitarist and your pianist. I don't think the bass really got too much limelight, other than some interludes where he got to sort of set up the next feel alongside the drum. It's basically your rhythm section, setting up your next section. It's kind of we see that often in some jazz stuff. Um, Kind of everybody cuts out and lets the drum and bass occasionally, if you have an electric guitar in your jazz band, or maybe a piano might join in on this. And the band cuts out, and it allows the rhythm section to get a little bit of spotlight for a second before the band comes back in. And we see that a few times with the drum and bass, sort of setting things up while the piano and guitarist duck out for a second. Um, so we have a couple of those moments where the bass gets spotlight by default because there's nothing else to take it. But for the most part, the drum and bass exist to create a foundation for the soloist. Sometimes the other lead instrument will jump into the foundational work as well, but it does not always happen. And the song is mostly a trading off of solos between your pianist and your guitarist. Now, that isn't to say that that's the entire song. It does have a sort of chorus style idea to it, which is that section that I said sounds familiar, like it's doing a little homage to something, but I can't place it. The melody just sounds very familiar up until the last note. It dips down into sort of a more muted feel, um, and it resolves to a place that I'm not expecting based on the melody that I think it's supposed to be being an homage to. So if anybody else feels real familiar with that section, let me know, especially if you think you know what melody I'm thinking of. I don't know what it is about that line, but I hear it and I'm like, yeah, they're alluding to something. I don't know what it is. Um, so anyways, that melody shows up a couple of times. We have solo section, then that melody, then a solo section, then that melody, and then a long solo section, and then the melody comes back in the end on the guitar rather than the piano. And it's sort of overshadowed by what the piano is doing a little bit. So it is sort of a chorus in a sense. It is a recurring melody that shows up throughout. However, it is minuscule compared to the solo sections. That thing takes up that chorus takes up a whole, I don't know, 10, 16 bars tops throughout the whole song, whereas we have, 11 minutes of solo work outside of that. The solos are very well done. I appreciate a lot of what's going on in them. I think the band does a really good job of sort of working with each other and kind of building moods and ideas as a group rather than just having a soloist solo for 16 bars and not have the band work with them. We see this when the guitarist or the pianist start increasing their volume or increasing the speed of notes, and the rest of the band joins in with this and increases intensity overall rather than just the soloist trying to carry that weight by themselves. Um, and, just like with jazz bands, we also see a moment when the band ducks out and gives the drums some spotlight. There's two drum solo sections, and they're done very jazz style, where he does a 1 to 2 bar fill, and then the band comes in with some sort of short, abrupt melodies, maybe even a stinger to sort of put like a dividing line between the solo fills. So he'd do a short fill and then bop do bop and you get this back and forth between the band having these interjections and then your drummer getting to do his solo fills. And that's also a very jazzy thing to do. There's a lot of stuff in here that feels very jazzy to me. And it's pretty cool we're getting this back to back with Zappa because Zappa felt like straight up big band to me. Um, I appreciate this. We need more jazz on the channel. 100%. Um, so, yeah. Um, the bassist, though, doesn't really get a chance to do much of anything. It sits in the pocket mostly, and well, it's part of the rhythm section. It lays down the river. It has some nice bass lines. I think it walked the bass a few times, but for the most part, it looked like it was mostly the basses looked like they were mostly just playing a single note repeatedly. The few times that they actually got some camera work while they were playing. Um, I don't want to say specifically just holding down the root note or anything like that, but yeah, just kind of playing a note over and over for a couple bars and switching up to a new note. I didn't really see any lead or melody stuff working on the bass, and that's fine, I suppose. Just, uh, you know, as a bassist, I I do like it when the bass gets some spotlight, see some nice work with the bass, and the sort of less present bass work. It worked for the purpose of the song, which was to give the pianist and the guitarist uh, room to solo over. I kind of hope if we check out more Dopapod stuff that I do see some work from the bassist though. Um, So yeah, and like I said, there's some really cool ideas in the solo work. I really dig that funky uh, keyboard that the dude had on to his right, and he was messing with the uh, I don't know, he was messing with a knob to really reduce the attack off of his notes, and it gave it this nice funky swell, and it was just that beginning tone was gorgeous. I loved it. And it's just really cool because I don't really play around too much with electronic instruments. Um, my keyboard in front of me is just a keyboard. I don't have any knobs to alter anything. I play the keys on it. So it's really cool to see people actually playing electronic instruments like this, where they're creating more or less what's kind of electronic music, digital music, but they're doing it by hand. A lot of this automation could be, or a lot of these audio manipulations could be done through automation. And I just like seeing it, live, actually messing with the dials to get the sounds that he wants. And he did it throughout the entire song on both of his keyboards, all three of his keyboards. Um, and I just dig that. It gives the cool effect that you would get from digital music while also having a performance aspect to it. And as longtime viewers of the show know, I dig performance. I think music should be played by musicians. Um, so yeah, I like seeing that. I can't imagine. I mean, I guess once you practice it so many times, it's just another part of the instrument that you would play. Even with trumpet, you've got your three valves, but then you also down here at the bottom, um, with your left hand, you also have two valves here. One, or yeah, I guess they're valves, pipes maybe. One is for your first valve, and one is for your third, and you can modify the note a little bit, which is important because the low D would be valves 1 and 3. And I can't remember if it tends to be sharp. I think it tends to be sharp. So what you want to do is when you play the D, you kick out the third valve, and it brings it down a little bit. And for the longest time, I just didn't do that. For like my first 2 years, maybe 3 years of playing trumpet, middle school stuff. I'm barely a teenager at this point. Um, I just kind of dealt with having a little sharp. Maybe I learned to bring it down a little bit with my embouchure, but after a while, your teacher maybe I think I transitioned to high school and we got a new teacher because my middle school teacher still taught middle school, and that might have been it. But yeah, eventually though, it just became second nature. When I play a low D, I need to kick it out, and then it became muscle memory. And I'm sure that's this too. Once you do it so many times, it's just muscle memory. But me trying, thinking about myself trying to play keyboard and mess with dials while I'm at it, sounds a bit overwhelming. But that's probably just because I'm not used to it. I've never played a keyboard with dials and knobs on it. So fascinating to me, definitely. And like I said, I love seeing the musicianship of it, the performance, actually seeing the digitalness being altered in real time performance rather than automated by a computer. It also allows the swells to be human. They're not automated. He can change them. They could come in late. They can come in early. The swell could be faster or slower because humans are imperfect. It's not going to be, the same exact percentage increase per beat or whatever. However you want to measure that. There's going to be slight imperfections to how fast it swells or how early you start it. And yeah, I think it shows. It makes it sound more less robotic. Not more or less, just forget I said more. It makes it sound less robotic, and I appreciate that. The guitar work was really nice. I dig some of the solos. Um, but this is where we're gonna venture a little bit into my subjective side and how I would compose it or how I would prefer the song went as a listener. Um, Not saying that Dopapod wrote the song incorrectly. I am not saying that it's a bad song or that it could be improved. I'm simply giving my opinions. If the song were presented to me as somebody revising a draft of it, these might be some of the notes I present. Dopapod does not have to take them to heart. I'm not like again. I'm not saying they're wrong. These are just my opinions. um, there were two solos that I felt were going places, and then they didn't resolve where they were going. The first was the tremolo picking section, which had a ton of energy. The band was starting to pick up their pace. Some of the longer notes were becoming shorter. We were seeing more notes per bar. The drummer was increasing their intensity, and then he just stopped tremolo picking like 4 bars towards the end of his solo, and then the solo ended, and then they just went into the next section. But it felt like the beginning of all their sections. It really was building up into something, and then just dissipated, and they started their next section as if that part didn't happen. Um, and this came up again closer to the end. It was just another section where we were getting this large buildup. We have volume increasing, intensity increasing. The instruments are all kind of opening up a bit, and then it just cools. And the song does a lot of these roller coaster uh, not loops, rises and falls, where we have a section, right? We have a section of the song, and it starts out with sort of the core idea. Then we have the solo builds, the section ends, the next section starts, and you have the core band. Sometimes it's just the rhythm section laying down the foundations. Then you have your solo, and your solo builds, and then ends, and then the next section starts. And it starts out small, and then you solo, and then the solo gets big. And that is sort of the framing of this song. It feels like 4 very similar but distinct sections that follow this pattern of start out small, solo, get big, then we move to the next section. And the transitions are nice. It's not like we have abrupt cuts, but I think the transitions being smooth has a lot more to deal with the overall sound and chordal properties than anything else. Like I said, these sections are very similar. They all have very similar tones and atmospheres, and I'd probably wager that the chord progressions are at least very close to being family members with each other. As far as chords go, I don't really think we're moving around a lot with note relationships. Um, Other than when we kicked in the Phrygian mode, like, and then went into the heavy rock ending, like, that was very distinct from the first 9 minutes of the track. Um, the song it has a nice flow to it, but it also feels a little segmented when you realize the pattern that's going on. Especially since the parts that build don't go anywhere. And I don't know if maybe that was done on purpose. It feels cyclical in a sense. Um, we keep seeing these familiar ideas, and they try to go somewhere, and then they end up back where they started, maybe a little different. The idea of running into a wall and bouncing off of it. Well, let's try with the shoulder this time. Let's use some sort of weapon instead of my shoulder. Let's drive a car into it. It's trying the same thing with a slightly different modification. And that's kind of what I'm getting here. It's cyclical. We're always starting back where we started, but when we start back, we try something just a little bit different. And like I said, I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if that's the feel they were going for, the overall theme, but that's kind of what I get out of it. Um, so the other issue that I have is that, as I stated at the beginning, for better or worse, it feels like a lengthy jam session. it feels like an 11 minutes long solo section. And that can work. I'm not saying that you can't make a song that's just solos, but I feel like this song really needs a strong lead around all of the solo stuff to really tie it together and keep it together. Um, and they started out with that, with what I said was like the chorus idea. And they sort of had that revolving around where it tied everything together. We had it after the first solo, we had it after the second solo, and it was a little idea that allowed you, it was kind of like a doorway. You know, a doorway is going to bring you somewhere else. And you walk through the doorway. And that's what it kind of does. It's this middle space between your solos where the song can kind of reset a little bit and let you know, okay, we're not in a solo section anymore. You can just chill and groove to this section. In a little bit, we're going to return to a solo. You might want to really listen in, sit down, check out what our soloist is doing. But for right now, this is a familiar section. You just kind of nod your head with it, get back into the groove before we go back into some of the more experimental solo stuff. And yeah, they started out with that premise, and then they just bucked it, and they kicked it right out the doorway. Um, and like I said, it works, all right. But for me personally, I would have enjoyed a little bit more structure to go with the solo. Just because the solos, when they tried to be structured, when we had the big build-ups, didn't resolve the way that structured writing typically would. So yeah, I'm a little torn on that one. Unless, of course, like I said, the whole song is designed to feel cyclical and kind of work within those themes that I'm getting, in which case they nailed it. If that's what they were going for, it's perfect. But I don't get that feeling. I think it was intended to be a fun jam. And it has, as far as I'm concerned, just a couple of small issues that really hold it back. Um, at least for my tastes. As I said before, these are just my opinions. You may listen to this and love it and thinks it's the best thing in the world, and guess what? That's valid. That's just as valid. In fact, in your world, I would say that that is a more valid opinion than mine. It is your views. If you enjoy it, then listen to it. Why do you care what I'm saying? I like to think that I might help people understand why they like something, or maybe different ways of seeing things, but I am in no ways telling anybody that if they enjoy something that they're wrong, or that they're listening to music wrong, or in this sense that I'm telling people that they're playing or writing music wrong. That is not what I want to do here. I'm just giving some ideas about my thoughts on the writing. So, with that said, I was going to end this, but I do want to talk about that last part. So, right before we entered the Phrygian section, we had a guitar solo that I thought worked very well. It had a couple of hesitant breaks in it. He played around with time, and there was also one time when it felt like the guitarist wanted to do a key change, and it was like 4 bars of playing outside of the lines, coloring outside the lines a bit, and then just folded right back into the key signature. And yeah, like with the tremolo picking, it felt like we were going to go somewhere, and then we didn't. We returned to normalcy. So that was yeah, just another example of a build up not leading anywhere. But yeah, that last guitar solo, he was playing around with time. He was playing a little bit around with key change. Just really jamming out. Real good solo. I think it was probably the solo I enjoyed the most out of the entire song. And then it led into the Phrygian mode, and that was an interesting change because not only did we change chordal modes, but we also changed atmospheric texture, and just the whole feel of the song changed. And I think it's beautiful because it doesn't feel too detached from what came before it, and it is a perfect transition into the big rock stuff that came right after it. I think if we had gone from what we did in the first 9 minutes to that big rock and roll ending type thing, uh, it would have felt very jarring. But the Phrygian middle there, I don't think it has anything to do with the Phrygian mode itself, other than the fact that it has a little bit more darkness to it. They added a little bit of heaviness to the section, and it was a really good lead in to that final part of the song. And yeah, so I don't. They know how to do transitions very well. They know how to take an idea and get to it, to build into an idea and transition into it smoothly. And it just kind of upsets me a little bit that that they didn't the first two times, the first three times that they started to introduce new ideas and then just fell flat. So yeah, but like I said, these are all ideas that can be changed. I don't know what I'm saying with that. These are all ideas that form my opinion, and if I learn different things about them, that can change my ideas. Like, I am kind of assuming right now that this is all improvised. If it's not, that's going to change my views on the song a little bit. If I find out that the cyclical aspect in the beginning is intended, it's to either to create this feeling of being in a cycle, or because they want to set you up for these new sections and then don't deliver, so that the ending actually has more oomph to it, because now we've set you up for a new section and we delivered on it. If it was done intentionally with a purpose, that will also change my mind on it. But without any extra context, just listening to the song and taking away what I did, I really enjoy the concept of it. I do. And for the most part, the execution is nailed. I think they did a phenomenal job. There's just a couple of hiccups that I think stop it from being great, at least in my opinion. But they're very small changes, too. Um, and then, of course, like I just said, my opinion of it can be improved or lessened a bit based on some context that I learned about it. Um, but yeah, so that's going to be my thoughts on Dopapod. I'm torn on them. I think they have really great potential. They're all phenomenal instrumentalists, except for the bass. Not to say the bass isn't a good instrumentalist. Just this song did not show off the bass skills. I'm sure that he's just as good as the rest of his bandmates. Just I didn't get to see the chops, unfortunately, here. But yeah, they're all phenomenal guitarists. They're all phenomenal musicians. They've got chops. They've got good writing skills. They really do. Um, and they have a ton of potential. I would love to see what happens in another song. I don't know when this came out. Maybe we could check out a song that came out on maybe like a subsequent album and kind of see how they mature. Um, or again, like I said, if I find out some context that kind of forces me to reevaluate how the song works for me, maybe this ends up being a masterpiece for me. I don't know. This is where you guys come in. No, hit me up in the comments. Let me know information about this song, information about the band, if you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, if you had the same hiccups as me, or if you think I'm crazy and this is a masterpiece and I don't know what I'm talking about. I see those comments. I know you guys put them down there. Who is this guy? Why should we be listening to him? What has he composed? Stuff like that. I see those comments. Ah, man. But it's all fair. It's all fun. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what's on your minds. There's a description box as well if you'd like to check out any links adjacent to the channel. Maybe you'd like to help out the channel a little bit. You can support us via Patreon, support us with shares, share us on Twitter, Reddit, social media, Facebook, whatever. Social media is not a platform, it's a generic thing. Don't go looking for a social media platform called social media. Uh, like, subscribe, ring the bell. All these things help out the channel immensely. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, with the random selection from the lower end of the poll. We're going to check something that didn't get voted too well. I like to do that. Polls are kind of a popularity contest, and I like to see what wasn't as popular. Sometimes it doesn't quite fit with the week, and that's why. It was kind of a weak correlation to the theme. Maybe that's why I didn't get picked. Other times it's just not so popular. It's a band no one's heard of, and those are pretty fun. So, And then Friday, of course, will be my personal selection from the week, which I kind of already figured I knew I was going to pick, unless it did very well. If it was top two, I wasn't going to pick it. But yeah, this one was going to be in the week regardless, just because I'm very interested in it. So I am aware of one of the people in it. I know of their work, but I don't think I knew they were in a band. So I'm interested to see what happens. I knew them from other music related stuff they did. Alright, that wraps this one up. Remember to be critical and not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.